Part 58. My villain wants to clear his name, but he awakens Cao Thief Simulator. Author, Fangzone Womang. Chapter 571. With a sneer, the Tomb Keeper shook his head and said, "However, don't think you can defeat me like this. After all, there is a gap in strength. I didn't use my full strength before. So what?" Suliang was full of confidence. He said it as if he had used all his strength. Confidence is a good thing, but overconfidence is self-destructive. The Tomb Keeper shook his head. "Today, I will show you how powerful the realm above the life spring is." The words fell. The figure of the Tomb Keeper disappeared instantly. Almost at the same time, as if across space, he appeared next to Suliang. At this moment, the strength he displayed was far greater than before. Volume 1 Chapter 510 The simulation starts again. I seem to have seen you somewhere. And out of the blue. Regarding the strength of the tomb guard at this moment, Suliang's display was absolutely accurate. It only took him an instant to react. While resisting the opponent's attack, Suliang subconsciously used the abyss tactics and launched a counterattack. As if he didn't realize that Suliang was so strong, without realizing it, the Tomb Keeper was directly caught in Suliang's hands. Then, it's a series of blows from a very familiar abyss tactics. Suliang's speed was as fast as thunder, leaving only an afterimage on the spot. The tip of the knife was swung and the wind of the fist was whistling. The Tomb Keeper was beaten so hard that he was unable to fight back. Just a moment. He vomited blood and fell to the ground. His muscles and bones were broken and he could not get up again. How could? The Guardian murmured in disbelief. He really couldn't imagine that just a small mistake would lead to such an ending. Obviously my strength has not been used at all. If I had known this, I would have just taken action and killed Suliang from the beginning. Since I can defeat you at this moment, it is enough to prove that I am stronger than you. The so-called carelessness and underestimation of the enemy are just excuses told to myself." Suliang stood beside the tomb guard, holding Lei Zhang in his hand, and slowly chopped it down. Blood splattered everywhere, and the unrivaled Tomb Keeper completely fell into Suliang's hands. Next, will only the Emperor's certificate be left? Suliang took a deep breath, put Lei Zhang away, and walked towards the tombstone. The certificate of the Emperor is stored here. Following the memory, I came to the place that resonated with him just now. Here, there are still traces of Suliang's punch. And through the broken ground. Among them, a red gold light flashed past, gradually condensed into shape, and turned into a piece of existence with the majesty and domineering air of the Emperor. Is this the proof of the Emperor? Looking at the Emperor's certificate in front of him, Suliang turned around and asked, "Can I just take it out?" "Yes, take it out directly." Yuji nodded, with a bit of excitement and expectation in her voice, "And you must take it out." He nodded, although he didn't understand what Yuji's last words meant. But Suliang didn't hesitate. He reached in, held the Emperor's certificate, and took it out. This moment, Suliang successfully obtained the Emperor's certificate. And at the same time, the red gold true dragon flashed over the abyss and was seen by many people. The abyss shook, and the aura that belonged exclusively to the Emperor came out wantonly, causing the heaven and earth to change color, and strange phenomena to occur frequently. This is the representative of the Emperor's certificate being taken away. This news spread throughout the abyss in an instant, directly alarming the 9 regions. And Suliang, who had captured the abyss certificate, became famous in the abyss at this moment. At the moment when Suliang got the Emperor's certificate, many vague memory fragments suddenly appeared in his mind. In those memories, a weak purple-furred loli followed beside him. Holding her sleeves with her little hands, the purple-haired loli stared at her big timid eyes and called her brother in a low voice. That voice was full of attachment. Certainly. The purple-haired Lolita is not just a younger sister. Childhood sweethearts, that's probably it. And the name of that purple-haired Lolita? Yuji. Suliang said softly, turning to look at the Queen of the Abyss aside. Yuji, real name Yuji, that's it? Seeing Suliang looking over, Yuji immediately came up and hugged her arms. What's wrong? Why are you looking at me like this? It's nothing, I always feel like I've seen you somewhere. Suliang smiled at Yuji, subconsciously reached out and touched Yuji's hair. That random pattern was exactly the same as the way he treated that purple-haired Lolita in the vague memory fragments. Well. Yuji immediately lowered her head, her pretty face turned red. What are you doing? She at this moment. There were stars in her beautiful eyes, her hands were clasped together in front of her, and she pouted, looking completely weak. There is absolutely no difference between the purple-haired Lolita in the memory fragments. Ahem. Suliang coughed lightly and came to his senses. Now that we have obtained the Emperor's certificate, let's leave here quickly. Where are we going next? Next. Yuji looked at Suliang with a smile, hugged Suliang's arm tightly, and let him fall into the peak. Don't be so anxious, let's find a place to rest first. Rest. Suliang was stunned and nodded slowly. Although I really want to resolve this matter as soon as possible. But, after passing through the trial on the ancient battlefield of the Nine Abyss, Suliang's physical strength has been exhausted a lot. If he encountered another battle, it would be difficult for him to ensure that everything was safe. That being the case, it doesn't hurt to take a little rest. And the memory fragments that appeared in his mind seemed to contain a lot of confidence, and Suliang planned to explore them carefully. This all requires a quiet environment. And just then, the voice of the system appeared in Suliang's ears for the first time in a long time. A new binding object has been detected, Queen of the Abyss Yuji. The mission of the 4-star Cao Thief is launched, and the Queen's domination simulation is officially launched. Does the host start the sims? A new simulation has appeared? And the target is indeed the Queen of the Abyss beside him, Yuji? He turned around and looked at Yuji's profile with a sweet smile seriously. Suliang did not respond to the system for the time being. Even if you want to simulate, you still have to find a suitable place. Otherwise. She fell asleep suddenly. Maybe Yuji would be worried, right? From this point of view, it seems that we should find a place to rest. In the room, Suliang was lying on the bed. Immediately afterwards, the Queen of the Abyss rushed up and hugged Suliang. Oh, I feel so tired after going through an ancient battlefield. Yuji rested her little head on Suliang's chest, rubbing and rubbing, cute and charming. After a hard work, it feels really comfortable to rest. Hear this. The corner of Suliang's mouth twitched unconsciously, and he couldn't help but say, it's obvious that I passed the 9-level trial, but why do you feel tired? They are also with you. Yuji stuck out her tongue, turned over, and her whole body was pressed against Suliang's body. Zhao Feng was proud and pressed tightly, making Suliang feel short of breath, and even breathing was a little difficult. Their eyes met. Yuji was so close that the tip of her small Qianbai nose almost touched Suliang. Do you want to sleep first, or eat first, or would you like to enjoy my massage first? Yuji blinked her eyes, quite eager to try. I think I could use some sleep, Suliang said seriously. Having been with Yuji for so long, Suliang is quite familiar with Yuji. I don't know if it's a deliberate trick or what. Behind every choice you make, they may seem ordinary, but they actually have a deeper meaning. My villain wants to clear his name, but he awakens Cao Thief Simulator. Author, Fangzone Womeng. Chapter 572. Let's eat first. Is it the food we eat, or the stunning beauty named Queen of the Abyss? Enjoy Yuji's massage, only she knows what this massage will be like in the end. Suliang really understands this. And even if Suliang's current choice is based on Suliang's understanding of the Queen of the Abyss, it will definitely not be that simple. Really? Sleep? Okay. The Queen of the Abyss was not frustrated at all, but nodded excitedly. Immediately. Just like this, his little head rested directly on Suliang's chest, his arms hugged Suliang tightly, and he closed his eyes. Sleep, sleep. And at the same time, even if she is pretending to be asleep, Yuji is not willing to put on a good show. Jade hands lurked beside Suliang. Without Suliang's attention, they split up and moved up and down. The plump and beautiful legs moved unconsciously and kept rubbing. The small and delicate feet were lively and naughty, stepping lightly or heavily. This is no way for people to have a good rest. Simply. What Suliang wants to do is actually not a normal rest. Let Yuji continue to tease her. Suliang said to the system, simulation is on. Simulation countdown for 1 minute. The sound of the system rang in Suliang's ears. As the system countdown sound continued to sound, Suliang's eyesight went dark and he fell into endless darkness. In a prosperous city. On the street, a calm young lady, who looked like an adult, was walking on the street holding the hand of a purple-haired Lolita. The purple-haired Loli followed closely behind Shota, one hand was held by Shota, and the other hand subconsciously held Shota's arm. He lowered his head slightly and looked timidly at the passers-by around him with his beautiful eyes. "Brother, otherwise, let's go back." The purple-haired Loli tugged on Shota's sleeves and whispered. Shota turned his head and glanced at the purple-haired Loli. "It's good to go out and walk more. Staying at home all the time will cause problems. Uncle and aunt also support me in taking you out for more walks." But. The purple-haired Lolita was still a little reluctant. "See this?" Shota stopped and turned around with a smile on his face. Gently rubbing the purple-haired Lolita's hair, Shota said, "Don't be afraid, I'm here, it'll be okay." The purple-haired Loli responded in a low voice and nodded slightly. This time, there was no further request. But subconsciously, the purple-haired Loli hugged Shota's arm tightly. As if this could bring her some sense of security. "See this?" Shota frowned and thought for a moment, then waved behind him. After a while, a person who looked like a maid rushed up and saluted Shota and Loli. "Master Suliang, Miss Yuji. Give me some money." Shota was rude and asked for money. Suliang was out in a hurry and on a last-minute whim, and he didn't have any money with him. But that's okay. There will definitely be maids and guards at home, and Suliang can borrow some from them temporarily. When you go back, you can just repay it twice as much. And heard Suliang's words. The maid didn't hesitate, took out some money and handed it to Suliang. "Take this. When you go back, go to the housekeeper and get a double portion." Suliang handed his jade pendant to the maid. This jade pendant represents his identity, so the housekeeper will naturally not doubt the maid. As for the jade pendant, the housekeeper will return it to him later. "Thank you, master." The maid bowed respectfully, and was not surprised by Suliang's behavior, and retreated directly. Holding the money in his hand, Suliang looked among the vendors along the street. Soon, he found the place he wanted. A bunch of candied haws. After handing the money to the hawker, Suliang selected the one that looked the best and gave it to the little girl behind him. "Here, try it. It's delicious." "What is this?" Yuji, the purple-haired Lolita, looked curiously at the candied haws in Suliang's hand. She had been weak since she was young, rarely went out and almost never ate food from outside, so naturally there were many people she didn't recognize. "Candied haws on a stick, very delicious," Suliang said with a smile. Hearing this, Yuji carefully took the candied haws, held it with difficulty in one hand, and took a small bite. Moment. Yuji's beautiful eyes immediately widened, full of novelty and surprise. Sour and sweet, so delicious. The little loli immediately became happy, and even the timid feeling before dissipated a lot. See this. Only then did Suliang laugh. Suliang had done this countless times to make her happy, and he was already familiar with it. Turn your head. Suliang took Yuji's hand and planned to continue shopping. After finally taking her out, I naturally wanted her to experience the beauty of this bustling city. But at this moment, in the busy city not far in front of the two people, chaos suddenly broke out. Countless pedestrians and vendors were hiding in all directions, looking anxious and panicked. They even had no time to put away the things in their hands and the items on the stalls. Vaguely, Suliang could also hear the rapid sound of horse hooves, mixed with a voice full of evil spirit and full of anger. Get out of the way, everyone, get out of the way, urgent information, please look at it if it is delayed. Brother, what happened ahead? Yuji hid behind Suliang, holding Suliang's hand and looking ahead curiously. Shaking his head, Suliang planned to take Yuji to escape no matter what happened. But before the two of them could take action, the panicked crowd suddenly separated, and a man with murderous intent and bloody energy appeared in front of the two of them, riding a tall war horse. And because the crowd suddenly dispersed, the horse was extremely fast, and the people on the horse had just discovered Suliang and Yuji and had no time to react. Master, miss. Not far behind the two, the maids and guards all shouted anxiously and ran towards them, wanting to protect the two. But it's too late. Just when everyone was shocked and thought everything was over, Suliang was extremely calm and didn't feel scared at all. Turning around and hugging Yuji, who was already stunned behind him, Suliang jumped up and jumped to both sides of the street. Next moment, the war horses roared past him, but they failed to hurt them after all. See this. The people watching around him all breathed a sigh of relief. The maids and guards almost collapsed to the ground. I followed him, obviously to protect the young master and the young lady. If anything happened to the young master and the young lady, they would be damned. Volume 1 Chapter 511 How long can this beauty last? Terrified, the maid and the guard hurriedly stepped forward and helped the two men up. While patting the dust on their clothes, the maid asked worriedly, Master, Miss, are you not injured? Suliang shook his head, hugged the frightened Yuji into his arms, and comforted her softly. Really, riding a horse in a busy city, if the young master hadn't been calm and clever, something would have happened a long time ago. The maid couldn't help complaining, when I get back, I must report it to the master and madam. This matter will never end with them. Forget it. Someone next to him sighed, hundreds of tribes from foreign lands invaded, and wars continued. Looking at that man's appearance, he must have just come off the battlefield and hurried back to report intelligence, right? As soon as these words came out, everyone around him sighed. Today's life seems peaceful, but we live in an era of invasion by hundreds of foreign races. Such prosperity and beauty seem to be just in vain. The other side. While comforting Yuji, Suliang listened to everyone's discussion and frowned slightly. Are hundreds of tribes from foreign lands invading? You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. My villain wants to clear his name, but he awakens Cao Thief Simulator. Author, Fangzone Womang. Chapter 573. In the blink of an eye, several years passed. Shota, who was calm and collected at first, has become a bit like a teenager. And that weak purple-haired Lolita grew up into a big Lolita, but she still liked to follow the boy. Although the two are not from the same family, they live in the same city after all, and the elders in the family have a close relationship. Naturally, the two played together all day long, regardless of each other. The elders in the family were also happy with the current situation of the two of them and never interfered. Suliang's house, in the kitchen. Suliang walked with a clear goal and went straight to the kitchen. He was obviously familiar with the process. This girl hides here every time, and there is nothing new about her. He doesn't even need to guess, he already knows her whereabouts. Shaking his head and sighing, Suliang couldn't help but laugh. It's rare to escape the sight of her elders. Naturally, she wants to be satisfied with what this girl wants. Otherwise, she could catch him before she left. Why wait until now and follow her all the way secretly to give her enough time? Waited for a while. Waiting for the squealing sound in the kitchen to subside a lot. Ahem. Suliang coughed lightly and deliberately revealed his whereabouts. Ah. In the kitchen, there was a small scream, and then there was a panic to clean up. Suliang was not in a hurry to go in, so he just waited here. But the next moment, snapped. There was a sound of plates falling to the floor and breaking. Ah! There was another exclamation, but this time, it was a little painful. Hear this sound. Suliang couldn't wait any longer and walked directly in. At a glance, he saw the big loli squatting on the ground, crying and biting her fingers. And in front of her was a broken plate. You, forget it. If you drop something, there will be someone to clean it up. Why are you going to move it? Suliang sighed helplessly, walked forward, squatted in front of Yuji, and asked with concern, "How are you? Are you injured?" "Brother, it hurts." Yuji bit her lip and showed her fingers to Suliang. Suliang hurriedly looked around, only to see that there were no scars on those little fingers that were as white as jade. It's completely intact. He was actually deceived by this girl. Suliang helplessly held his forehead. As calm as he is, he can actually lose his composure when it comes to this girl. "You already knew I was outside, right?" Suliang rubbed Zi Mao Loli's purple hair and said helplessly. Hey. Yuji chuckled, "Really? My brother was outside just now. It was really a surprise." "You girl, it's a little early to lie to me." Suliang glared at him. This girl must have known that she was outside and didn't want her to tell her parents about her stealing food, so that's why she acted like this. Because she was injured, she took the opportunity to bargain or something. This girl really took advantage of her own weakness. "I'm not lying to you." Yuji stretched out her finger in front of Suliang, feeling aggrieved, and said, "I am obviously injured. I was pricked. It hurts." Okay, you're hurt." Suliang helplessly patted Yuji's little head and hugged her. "Don't worry, I won't tell others what happened today." "Okay, brother is the best." Yuji immediately became happy, rushed forward and hugged Suliang. With a doting smile on his face, Suliang gently patted Yuji on the back. It's really not easy for the little girl to finally eat secretly once. There is no need to talk about this little thing. After all, this girl is a little weak not only in her personality, but also in her body. She is usually not allowed to eat those delicious foods at home. After coming to my place and finally getting away from the care of her elders and maids, I have to give her a chance to satisfy her cravings, right? I have nothing to do, how about we go out and play? Suliang let go of Yuji and asked with a smile. Okay. Yuji nodded, very excited, completely gone from the timid look she had when she followed Suliang out for the first time when she was a child. But actually, she was already weak, and she never went out much except when she came to Suliang's house. When talking to others, he always feels weak, and rarely communicates with others. But that doesn't matter. As long as he is by his side, he has nothing to fear. No matter what happens, he will protect himself. Yuji took Suliang's big hand, feeling the warmth, with a smile on her lips. Walking down the street. Different from when they went out when they were young, this time they were not accompanied by maids. Suliang is not too young anymore. The young man came alone with the little girl. In this prosperous town, there is no need to worry too much. Not to mention, Suliang and Yuji are actually somewhat famous. They have good family backgrounds and are kind to others. In addition, Suliang is calm and mature, and Yuji is weak and cute. In fact, many people know young Master Suliang and Miss Yuji. No need to worry about being in danger at all. Brother, I want to eat this. Yuji took Suliang's arm and pointed at the vendor selling candied haws on the roadside. I eat a bunch of them every time I go out. Seriously, don't you get tired of it? Suliang chuckled softly, but still turned around and took the money to buy a bunch back. It's just candied haws. If she likes it, she will buy it herself. It's that simple. Pass the candied haws to Yuji's hand. This time, Yuji handed it to Suliang's mouth again. Ah, you eat it first. See this. Suliang was not polite and bit off several in one bite. Ah. Yuji was startled and immediately puffed up her cheeks. She looked at Suliang softly and muttered in a low voice, "Brother is bad. He actually ate so much spicy food. Yua, thanks to my kindness, I want my brother to eat first." However, Volume 1 Chapter 512, a lifelong dream that will be shattered sooner or later. The big loli has a puffy face and big misty eyes. This pitiful and weak look is so cute. Even Suliang couldn't help pinching Yuji's little face, turned around and bought another bunch and handed it to Yuji. "Here, I'll give you another bunch as compensation." But my string. Yuji looked at the candied haws with only half a bunch left in her hand, still a little confused. "Look, if I had eaten one of yours just now, wouldn't you have been able to eat a bunch of candied haws?" Suliang explained patiently, "But now, I ate half of your skewer, and then gave you another skewer. In this case, wouldn't you be able to eat 1.5 skewers? It looks like it's a good deal for you, right?" Huh. Yuji was stunned for a moment, then nodded in understanding. "It seems right. But I always feel like something is wrong." And immediately after, Suliang came up and said, "Look, since I let you eat a skewer, in order to thank me, do you have to let me eat another one?" "Okay." After struggling for a while, Yuji handed over the remaining half of the skewer and warned, "You can only eat one. My favorite candied haws, only my brother can eat one, and no one else is willing to give it to me." Okay, take one." Suliang nodded and ate the remaining half of the skewer. "See this." Yuji was stunned. After a moment, her eyes turned red and she was about to cry, "Wow, brother is bullying me." Watch this scene. Everyone around, both pedestrians and vendors, couldn't help but smile. The relationship between young Master Suliang and Miss Yuji is really good. It looks like the bully is bullying, but the kind of pampering that is requested and not answered is simply too obvious. Although he is still young, he looks like a perfect match no matter what. If they don't get together in the future, we won't agree with it. Watching Suliang and Yuji's backs gradually disappear. My villain wants to clear his name, but he awakens Cao Thief Simulator. Author, Fangzone Womeng. Chapter 574. Faintly, Suliang's words, "I'm doing this for your own good, to prevent you from eating too much and getting cavities," could still be heard. Everyone smiled, shook their heads, and continued with their own affairs. But at this moment, on the street in the distance, there were actually hundreds of people dressed in white, and someone was carrying a coffin behind them. Counting carefully, the number of coffins actually reached more than 10. Those walking in front all looked dull, their eyes were lifeless, and their faces were stained with tears. Clearly, there had been a period of mourning. Some people are even so weak that they are about to faint. Saw this scene. All the pedestrians on the road stopped and subconsciously moved out of the way. Even those who were joking before stopped and looked at the scene solemnly. Not far ahead, Suliang heard the sound and hid aside with Yuji. The dead are the most important, Suliang understands this truth very well. Wait until these people pass by. Suliang led Yuji to the vendor on the side and asked in confusion, what happened to that just now? Could it be that there were strongmen and robbers somewhere? Well, the hawker sighed, young master, I don't know something. These people were all sent back the day before yesterday. Send it back. Suliang frowned slightly, from where? A battlefield with hundreds of tribes from foreign lands. There was some worry in the vendor's voice. The war with hundreds of foreign tribes is at its most intense, and there will be countless casualties every day. I really don't know which day the defense line will be broken. By then, I'm afraid we won't be spared either. Is it another tribe from a foreign land? Suliang frowned in thought, remembering the galloping war horses in the past. Hurry up, we're going to be late. The purple-haired girl strode forward, with an excited look on her pretty face. I know, it's not a rare thing, so don't be so excited, right? The boy followed the girl, looking at the girl's excitement, and sighed helplessly. But there was a doting smile on the young man's face. Forget it, as long as she can be happy. My family finally invited a theater troupe to come. It's a rare lively event, so of course we can't miss it. The purple-haired girl Yuji turned around, quickly came to Suliang's side, and took Suliang's hand. Liang, let's go quickly, otherwise, we won't be able to catch up with the good position. You, after all, our two families paid for it, so we can get a good position after all. Suliang helplessly patted Yuji's little head. Besides, when you were a child, you always called me brother. Why have you changed your title now? Hearing this, Yuji's pretty little face suddenly turned red. Lowering her head and holding Suliang's arm tightly, Yuji whispered, Of course not, brother or something, there is no chance at all. I don't want to be your sister. There is no chance of being a sister. It's just a title, whatever you want. Suliang didn't dwell too much on this matter. Seeing people coming and going in front of him, he squeezed Yuji's little hand and said, We're almost there, let's go. As the two got closer, they heard the roar of people. Almost half of the people in the city gathered here, looking at the stage set up in front, looking excited and waiting expectantly. Countless vendors were moving among the crowd, and it was a lively scene with people coming and going. After all, finally, a theater troupe came to perform. This is a rare and lively event, so of course you can't miss it. And this troupe was invited by the families of Suliang and Yuji. See Suliang and Yuji. Someone immediately gave up their seat and greeted with a smile, Master Suliang, Miss Yuji, hurry over. The best seats in front are reserved for you too. Thank you. Suliang smiled politely, nodded his thanks, and then led Yuji towards the crowd. When the two of them reached the expected position at the front, but an old man came up with many candied haws on his back and handed one over. Master Suliang, this is the candied haws reserved for Miss Yuji. Thank you. Suliang subconsciously paid for it and wanted to buy it. However, the old man stopped him, shook his head and said with a smile, the old man's craftsmanship is ordinary, but he is liked by Miss Yuji. This makes the old man's business much better. Think of this as a thank you from the little old man. Hearing this, Suliang didn't shirk and accepted it very naturally. Thank you very much, old man. Immediately, as the old man left with satisfaction, he handed the candied haws to Yuji. Yuji held the candied haws in her hands and ate it in small bites, her pretty face full of satisfaction and sweetness. As the old man said before, his craftsmanship is actually average. But the first skewer he ever ate, and also the tastiest one, was the one he bought for himself from the old man. I wouldn't want to replace it with someone else's. Eat slowly. Suliang pulled up his sleeves, wiped Yuji's sugar-stained mouth, and said helplessly. Hee, people like it? Yuji smiled sweetly. Soon. Amid everyone's expectations, the troupe started. However, what was on the stage was a general wearing armor, leading his soldiers, fighting against that strange-looking being. The content is quite fascinating, the singing and acting are excellent, and the ending is very tragic. It is a rare good play. But this content is really confusing for people who don't understand it. What is the existence that fights with that general? Subconsciously. Suliang listened to the conversations of the people around him, trying to understand the truth. Alas, General Kang Jiun's deeds are really disappointing. That's right. He fought against hundreds of tribes in a foreign land and defended the lonely city for dozens of days. In the end, there was no food and water in the city. Even so, he never gave up and resisted until the last moment. He is truly a hero. What a pity. Less than a moment after General Kang Yun died at the hands of a foreign country, reinforcements arrived. I can't blame the reinforcements. They have tried their best to rush on their way. But then again, if it weren't for General Kang Yun, after the city was broken, our place might have become a land of hundreds of foreign tribes. I really don't know how long we can maintain the peace here. Another tribe from a foreign land? Suliang frowned. Over the years, he has grown a lot, and he has also paid attention to and learned some news about hundreds of tribes in foreign lands. Hundreds of foreign races from another world are now invading this world, and wars are going on one after another, almost never stopping. Although human beings can still manage to support themselves today, what the future will bring is still unknown. After the play ended, Suliang Liang and Yuji wandered together, and soon they came to a hillside outside the city. The moon was bright and the stars were sparse. Yuji was sitting on the hillside, holding Suliang's arm and leaning on Suliang's shoulder. Liang, the story in the play just now. Don't worry about here, the foreign races are still far away from us. Suliang shook his head and interrupted Yuji's words. Yuji pouted, glared at Suliang, and then said worriedly, but even the elders in the family are worried. Our place seems prosperous and peaceful, but in fact, it's not that safe at all. Maybe hundreds of tribes from foreign lands will attack us at some point. Why are you worried so much? Suliang rubbed Yuji's hair. When that time comes, I will still be here to protect you, don't you worry. Real? Yuji was stunned, her eyes immediately lit up, and a happy and sweet smile appeared on the corner of her mouth. Silly girl, of course it's true. How could I let you get hurt? Suliang held Yuji in his arms. Liang is indeed the best. Yuji smiled happily, leaning her little head on Suliang's arms, nuzzling her like a clingy kitten. For a while, there was silence between the two, but the sweet atmosphere kept spreading. Looking at the stars in the sky, Suliang suddenly said, "Girl, how about marrying me?" Liang is confessing his love to someone. Oh, yes. Humph, obviously I always called you brother when I was little. Well, I've always thought of words with the word love in front of them. But, how is bad. But, I also like brother Suliang very much. A long time ago, I wanted to add the word love in front of my brother. Under the moonlight, boys and girls make a lifelong commitment. Everything is so perfect and happy. However, living in this era of invasion by hundreds of foreign tribes, all the good things seem to be just a dream that will be broken sooner or later. Chapter 781. The simulation ends, the worries of the girls. My villain wants to clear his name, but he awakens. Cao Thief Simulator. Author, Fangzone Wo Meng. Chapter 575. The darkness in front of him gradually receded, consciousness returned, and Suliang slowly opened his eyes. Thinking back to everything I experienced in the simulation. Compared with the previous simulation, it is indeed too bland and a bit too sweet, right? In the previous simulations, except for the time with Qin Wanyu, I had never seen the existence of Yaishan. And even for the Overlord and Meiji, something like a ranking list appeared, allowing the Overlord to attack with force and defeat the other dynasties one by one. At last, he also met the princess and the arrival of the final immortal. However, that time it ended well. But I don't know why, this time Suliang always felt like he had a knife behind him. The scene in the previous scene when I got Yuji's hairpin in the Fuxi abyss was exactly the same sweetness. This made Suliang feel even worse. In short, even though I simulated it once, there were too few clues and I couldn't understand anything at all. Suliang sighed, feeling that he was still confused and confused. How did Yuji become like this? The so-called hundreds of alien races should be abyssal creatures, right? Forget it, let's think about these things later. The top priority is to follow Yuji and embark on the path of the Lord of the Abyss. This is the thought. Subconsciously, Suliang turned his head and looked at Yuji beside him. A purple-haired Lolita, soft and cute. No matter how you look at it, she is very different from the current Queen of the Abyss who is enchanting and charming to the extreme. As for being clingy, it makes no difference. I felt Suliang's gaze looking over. Yuji showed a gentle smile. You're awake, how are you resting? Yeah, very good. Suliang nodded, and immediately planned to get up. You should also rest, shall we set off now? I'm looking forward to wherever we go next. Go quickly, otherwise, God knows what Yuji will do to her. However, before Suliang could get up, Yuji's tender white lotus root arms directly came up to her. One hand suppressed Suliang, and the other hand supported his head. Yuji was lying sideways next to Suliang, with a soft smile on her lips, lazy and charming. Just one look at her made people unable to help but feel excited in every sense of the word. Let's take a rest. Yuji slowly moved closer. Gaofeng pressed Suliang tightly. You have had a good rest, but I have been protecting you and you have not had a good rest at all. I also want to have a good rest. Well, just rest in your arms. After hearing this, Suliang nodded helplessly. Okay. How could he not know that this was Yuji's excuse? As the Queen of the Abyss, at her current state, she can persist for a long time even if she has to fight continuously or take a break. Volume 1 Chapter 513, Women fall into the abyss, the evil king attacks. Not to mention, along the way, Yuji didn't move a hand at all. She kept following Suliang and watching Suliang's actions. How could she need a rest? However, in the simulation, the scene of the weak purple-haired little loli running towards him with her little hands stretched out has been lingering in Suliang's mind. Unconsciously, he couldn't refuse Yuji's request at all. How can we do this? I can only agree. Seeing Suliang agree, the smile on Yuji's pretty face became more obvious. In that case, don't resist. He leaned into Suliang's ear and whispered. Immediately, Yuji actually turned over and fell directly on Suliang's body. Is this how you rest? Suliang Gren was numb, he knew it would be like this. Of course. Yuji said confidently, only in this way can I have a good rest. I think we can still discuss it. Suliang sighed and made his last effort. No, no, no. Yuji shook her little head. If you reject me, I will be unhappy. Oh, what should I do if I don't perform well and don't become the Lord of the Abyss? It's completely impossible to ask my men to move back. Threat, you are clearly threatening me. Suliang Gren was stunned. What kind of Queen of the Abyss was this? It was okay to threaten him directly in this way? But what can Suliang do? Yuji's threat is obviously very useful. Without any choice, Suliang had no choice but to nod and agree, okay, whatever you want. Really, Yuji is still as clingy and teasing as ever. She doesn't look like the queen of the abyss at all. But the words just fell. He saw Yuji take out a jelly and show it in front of Suliang. How do you get this thing? Suliang felt a little confused. This was something he had only made for his girlfriend. It's delicious and fun, it's really the all-rounder. Of course I got it from your house. Yuji said it matter of course, I heard from Benjeo that this thing is not just for food. What is going on with my girlfriend and why would I tell her such a thing? Then, Suliang watched helplessly as Yuji took the jelly and moved it all the way down. Immediately. Hold the future. Holy mountain, in the city. It's so boring. Without Suliang, it's so boring. Qin Benjeo was lying on the table in the yard, watching the sisters doing their own training, completely unmotivated. How many days has Suliang been gone? It feels like I haven't replenished Lang Jun's energy for a long time. I simply don't have enough energy and I can't get up the energy to do anything. Yao, you'd better practice hard, otherwise, you will be completely left behind by Liang. Tan Qinja stopped her movements and looked at Qin Benjeo helplessly. I am indeed practicing. Qin Benjeo said confidently. Her cultivation method is different from others. She is aware of the power of time and space at any time, and there is no trace of it, so it is impossible for anyone to see it. I don't know what happened to Brother Suliang. Is he in danger? Was he abducted by the Queen of the Abyss? Tao Yao lay beside Qin Benjeo and said worriedly. As soon as these words came out, all the girls stopped their training and turned to look at Tao Yao. There were so many eyes staring at him, especially among them were Sister Benjeo, Sister Wanqing, a holy lord of the righteous path, and a sovereign emperor of the demonic path. Such a lineup is enough to destroy the world, right? Ahem, did I say something wrong? Tao Yao curled up into a ball and shivered. No. Wanqing suddenly sighed, to be honest, I'm also worried about my good disciple. The Queen of the Abyss and so on are the next best thing. She believes that it is absolutely impossible for Master to abandon these sisters at home. Only. The more powerful you are, the more you fear the Abyss. Wanqing was worried about what danger Suliang would encounter in the Abyss. And listen to Wanqing's words. All the girls sighed together. Not just Wanqing and Tao Yao. Even they are worried about their men. I don't know when Senior Brother Su will come back. Mu Qingqian pouted and held her chin up as she spoke. It had only been a few days since I had seen Senior Brother Su, and I was already thinking a lot. Really, I can't live without Senior Brother Su. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. My villain wants to clear his name, but he awakens Cao Thief Simulator. Author, Fangzone Womeng. Chapter 576. When Senior Brother Su comes back, he must repay everything he owes. The speed of cultivation has slowed down recently. Well, when Senior Brother Su comes back, let's discuss the cultivation methods with Senior Brother Su. This time, we must prevent Senior Brother Su from leaving for 3 days and 3 nights. Certainly. In this case, it's not enough to do it alone, so you have to bring Tao Yao with you. That's right. If Suliang doesn't come back, I won't be able to continue my sword training. Jingmeng said seriously. Obviously, I was very happy practicing swordsmanship by myself in the past. But now I don't know why. Without Suliang, I would have no motivation or ideas for my sword training. As long as he picks up the sword, he will unconsciously think of Suliang in his heart. I remembered the feeling of holding Suliang while practicing swordplay, and the joy of dating Sul Yang. Without that warm, reassuring aura around me, it would be impossible to practice swordsmanship. Listening to his master's words and looking at his master's appearance at this moment, Mu Qingqian fell into deep thought. It seems, probably, maybe, that the plan of revenge that I had conceived before was about to succeed. This feeling is really a bit complicated. Without my husband, even studying piano music is meaningless. Qin Wanyu lay on the piano given to her by Sul Yang. Her tall height pressed against the strings, leaving traces like the strings. Don't know why. Qin Wanyu suddenly blushed. She suddenly thought of the time she practiced piano with her husband before he left for the Holy Land. When the husband comes back, the scene at that time can be recreated. Qin Wanyu also wants to completely master the method of playing the piano without hands. And immediately, Qin Wanyu raised her head and looked at Yang Kaoj on the side. While my husband hasn't come back yet, Kaoj, do you want to go back to Daxia? After all, she is the Empress of Daxia. Regarding Daxia's affairs, it's time for Yang Kaoj to have some snacks, right? It doesn't matter. Anyway, Yefei is here. If anything happens, Yefei will come to me. Yang Kaoj waved his hand indifferently. Since Mr. Lang is not here, I don't have that kind of motivation at all. Anyway, after the previous invasion of the Abyss, Yang Kaoj mobilized various dynasties as the Empress of Daxia, making Yang Kaoj and Daxia rise to the top regardless of their status and status. With an Empress whose strength is comparable to Transcendence, who dares to provoke Daxia? I'm afraid even if I try my best, it won't be enough to beat Kaoj alone. So, what are you going back for? It's better to wait here. When Lang Jun comes back, I want to be the first to see him. And as Yang Kaoj's words fell, the room fell into silence. Even 11 Hang and Ji Hongchen sat together listlessly, with no thoughts of fighting at all. I don't remember how many days Sul Yang was away. I miss him. Life without your husband is extremely boring. I hope Lang Jun can come back from the Abyss well. Certainly. The Queen of the Abyss is that bad woman who covets her husband, and he must not let her abduct her. For a while, in the hearts of all the women, they were worried about their men in every sense of the word. Unless Sul Yang comes back, there will be no way to calm this worry. Abyss. In one of the 8 domains, one of the 8 kings stood up from the throne and walked slowly outside the luxurious palace. The emperor's certificate was actually obtained. Ha, that's just right. The qualification certificate for the road to becoming emperor is what the strong should have, and the weak do not deserve it. I originally wanted to take it in my hand, but now, someone help me take it out. That being the case, then take back your own emperor's certificate. Immediately, a figure jumped up and flew towards Sul Yang's direction at an extremely fast speed. So, where are we going next? Sul Yang lay on the bed, looking up at the ceiling, feeling peaceful in his heart, with no desires or desires. A rare sage mode. Although it is passive, it has to be admitted. How could Yuji be so good at it? In some aspects, even my own girlfriend cannot be better at all. Even Yuji knows all about her little details. Even my own wife doesn't know about the most secretive things. Simply outrageous. Don't be anxious. Yuji lay next to Sul Yang, her little head resting on Sul Yang's chest, her delicate white jade hands gently caressing Sul Yang's face. We fought 9 games in a row, and finally encountered such a strong enemy. Don't you think tired? After all, I have made some breakthroughs in my cultivation. Tired or not, it's not bad. Sul Yang was very frank. What's more, no matter how tired you are, you should recover after resting for such a long time. It's still injured. Yuji opened her eyes and looked at Sul Yang seriously. There were successive battles, and I lost myself in the killing several times. In the end, I had to fight against such a powerful enemy. Although you appear to be fine on the outside, the accumulated hidden wounds will occur sooner or later, which will affect your cultivation. It's not that bad. Suliang said doubtfully. His cultivation level has reached the level of life, and he is considered one of the best masters in the world. Suliang is still somewhat confident when it comes to cultivation. But after all, the Queen of the Abyss is a powerful existence far beyond him. And, after all, Yuji knew much more about the Abyss than Suliang. It seems like I really should listen to Yuji. So, are we going to rest here for a while now? Suliang asked helplessly. Of course. Yuji nodded seriously and lied seriously. Okay, I can't beat you anyway, you have the final say. Suliang helplessly spread his hands. Since I can't beat him, I have no choice but to agree. Hear this. Yuji immediately smiled like a cunning little fox who had succeeded. See this. Suliang couldn't help but twitch the corner of his mouth. Although I know that what you said is all bluffing me, please don't show it so openly, okay? Why, are you happy that I let you succeed? If I couldn't beat you. Looking at Yuji being hugged up again, Suliang sighed helplessly. This is really unbeatable. But at this moment, Yuji frowned and stood up immediately. What's wrong? Suliang asked doubtfully while looking at Yuji wearing clothes. Something that could make Yuji change her face. Could it be that they are in big trouble? Someone in trouble is coming to our door. Yuji smiled distressedly. Really, that bastard doesn't understand the atmosphere at all, and he dares to disturb our two-person world. Immediately, when the conversation changed, Yuji's face became serious. Let's go out of the city to meet him. When an uninvited guest comes, of course you must treat them accordingly. Who is coming? Suliang asked doubtfully. Seeing Yuji treat her seriously, Suliang felt solemn in his heart. Suliang has always believed in Yuji's strength. After all, even her own master is no match for her, and Yuji's strength can be said to be among the best in the world. To be able to treat a being as powerful as Yuji seriously, the other party must have a lot of background. Couldn't he be one of the 9 kings of the Abyss? But he remembered that Yuji said that not many of the other 8 kings could match his strength. My villain wants to clear his name, but he awakens Cao Thief Simulator. Author, Fangzone Womeng. Chapter 577. And immediately after, Yuji's words confirmed Suliang's guess. Looking at the aura, it should be one of the other 8 kings. Yuji crossed her arms in front of her chest, but she changed her previous serious attitude and became more casual. A very annoying person, his strength is average for me. Isn't she as powerful as Yuji? That's no problem. Suliang relaxed a little. It's not that he wants to rely on Yuji. After all, in the Abyss, it is better to keep a low profile. What's more, he has never seen the other 8 kings except Yuji, so naturally he doesn't know what their strength is. I don't know if my current cultivation level of Mingquan is the opponent's opponent. If possible, it would be a good thing to try to fight one of the 9 kings and become familiar with the opponent's fighting style and strength. At least, it can also accumulate all Abyss-related experiences for the present world. Just when Suliang was thinking to himself, in the distant sky, a roar sounded, which was the sound caused by flying at extremely fast speeds. Vaguely, Suliang saw a majestic and domineering man flying towards him. The strong aura of the Abyss could be clearly felt from a distance. Is it really the evil king? The moment she saw this man, Yuji raised her eyebrows, but she was not surprised. If it is this person, then there seems to be no danger if Suliang is to deal with it. Just right. You can also let Suliang get familiar with his strength. He must be familiar with his strength and lay a foundation to break through realms in a short period of time. Otherwise, there will be hidden dangers. Just the blink of an eye. Volume 1 Hashtag Chapter 514, give you a chance to take action. Boom. After a roar and explosion, the heavenly evil king landed in front of Suliang and Yuji, stirring up waves of wind, waves, and dust. No wonder I feel that my royal certificate has been taken away by an unknown person. Looking at it now, it is not surprising. Before the dust had cleared, the voice of the heavenly evil king rang out, with your support behind me, even an unknown person, it is not impossible to defeat the tomb keeper and take away the emperor's certificate matter. As expected, Yuji, do you want to embark on the road to becoming an emperor? The words fell. The dust dispersed, revealing the figure of the heavenly evil king. And the majestic and vast aura of the abyss, as deep as the abyss and prison, also appeared from this moment, demonstrating the power of the heavenly evil king, one of the 9 kings of the abyss. However, the moment he sensed the strength of the heavenly evil king, Suliang's expression became a little strange. Well, looking at the majestic and domineering appearance, the king's clothes and the unparalleled strength, plus Yuji's recognition, the person in front of him is indeed one of the 9 kings of the abyss. But it doesn't seem like he can't handle this strength. I think back not long ago, when faced with transcendent abyss creatures, even if I could defeat them, my abilities were limited. But now, facing one of the 9 kings of the abyss, he can actually fight him. This feeling is really a bit subtle. At the same time, the other side. After saying a few words to himself, King Tianzai looked at Suliang again. Immediately. Then he narrowed his eyes and said, "Is it you who has obtained the emperor's certificate?" The evil king didn't care about his appearance. There were hundreds of races in the abyss, and it was not impossible that some of them looked like humans. And on Suliang, because of Yuji's painstaking efforts, his aura was almost the same as that of the abyss. For a while, the issue of identity was not questioned. However, sensing Suliang's cultivation, the heavenly evil king sneered, "It's just a spring of life, but it's worthy of being certified as an emperor. Boy, hand over the emperor's certificate, and I will spare your life. Otherwise, I will kill you and go get it myself." "How do you know that the emperor's certificate is in my hand?" Suliang asked curiously. Even if the opponent is one of the 9 kings of the abyss, as long as he can fight with his own strength, Suliang will not be afraid. And even if you are not your opponent, what do you have to fear? After hearing this, King Tianzai glanced at Yuji. "Didn't you tell him that when he gets the emperor's certificate, the entire abyss will know of his existence?" "Perhaps, people have forgotten." Yuji stuck out her tongue, not hiding her embarrassment at all. "Good guy, if you can forget such an important thing, you obviously did it on purpose, right?" Suliang cursed endlessly, but he didn't suspect anything. All the way till now, he still has enough trust in Yuji. If the other party hadn't been trying to come up with various excuses to complain to him, Suliang's trust might still be a little stronger. Yuji naturally has her own reasons for doing things, and Suliang believes that she will not harm him. With a chuckle, Suliang said to King Tianzai, "As one of the 9 kings of the abyss, you shouldn't play any tricks to sow discord." Immediately, taking out the emperor's certificate, Suliang waved it in front of Tianzai. "King, want it? Come and get it yourself. Are you provoking me?" The evil king immediately narrowed his eyes and became murderous. "You are really being underestimated. Boy, why do you think this king can talk to you so calmly? If it weren't for Yuji's presence, I would have taken it long ago. Damn it, Yuji is here, this is the most troublesome situation, I am no match for Yuji." But he still remembered that not long ago, he had approached Yuji, hoping to force Yuji to withdraw from the border and let him pass at will. It was also that time that made him realize the gap between himself and Yuji. He was instantly killed in one move, and there was no way he could resist. With Yuji here, it would be impossible for him to seize the emperor's certificate. However, to the surprise of the heavenly evil king. Yuji actually smiled faintly and shook her head. This time, Gu will not take action, everything will be solved by himself. Immediately, he turned to look at Suliang and said, "Leave it to you, don't worry, you will be fine." The words were full of strong trust in Suliang. And to this, Suliang didn't show any surprise or resistance at all. He just nodded lightly and said, "That's right. I also want to try fighting against the King of the Abyss." Oh! The heavenly evil king was overjoyed, but his face showed incomparable anger. "Boy, are you ready to be killed for provoking an Abyss king? I stand on the top of the Abyss. I am one of the 9 people who rule the Abyss. How dare you challenge me with just a life spring?" The atmosphere gradually became anxious, and the smell of gunpowder between Suliang and Tianzai King became stronger and stronger. It seemed that a big battle could start at any time. "Boy, the majesty of the king cannot be challenged. Today, I will teach you this truth," the evil king said coldly, and then suddenly took action. Moment. The extremely strong breath of the abyss rushed towards his face, and the heavenly evil king punched out from afar. The fierce wind of the punch brought up a hurricane-like wind and wave, and even the ground cracked inch by inch, and it seemed that it could not bear it. As soon as he took action, the heavenly evil king showed extremely powerful strength. As one of the 9 kings of the abyss, he can ascend to the existence of the king of the abyss by relying on his own cultivation strength. The heavenly evil king may indeed be far different from Yuji. But this does not mean how weak he is. Even in the entire abyss, except for the other 8 kings, there are very few people who can be his opponent. However, this powerful strength was defeated in front of Suliang. Facing the Tianzai king, who was testing 80% of his strength. Suliang is holding a long sword, with the sword body hidden at his waist. The palm of his hand slowly rested on the hilt of the sword. The sea of underworld returns to its original state, Taoism, nature, etc. are all turned on. All of a sudden, the extremely fiery sword intent shot straight into the sky and tore apart the clouds in the sky. The sun poured down and shone on Suliang. One sword, no regrets. After a light drink, the bright sword light flashed away, and he rushed straight away with the artistic conception of sword coming out without regrets. He was so fast that no one could stop him. Just a moment. The punch of Tianzai King was broken by Suliang. Not only that. In the midst of the bright sword light, the sword energy surged straight towards the king of heavenly evil with unparalleled power. Before the heavenly evil king could react, he struck directly at the heavenly evil king and knocked him away. My villain wants to clear his name, but he awakens Cao Thief Simulator. Author, Fangzone Wo Meng. Chapter 578. Puff. Vomiting blood, the heavenly evil king looked at the penetrating sword wound on his body in disbelief. You can actually hurt me. How can this be? Volume 1 Chapter 515, Reward from the Queen of the Abyss, lie down obediently. It's just a spring of life, how can it possibly hurt this king? His expression immediately became ferocious, and the Tian evil king's voice was as cold as ice, with a murderous intent that sent chills all over the body. Okay, very good. Apart from Yuji, I haven't felt such pain for a long time. You don't know the bounds of heaven and earth, you will die today. Not even Yuji can save you. The words fell. The king of heavenly evil rushed straight towards Suliang. In anger and humiliation at being hurt, the king of heavenly evil opened fire with full force, and his powerful blows seemed to be endless and never stopped. To this, Suliang responded with ease. With a long sword in his hand, countless sword moves poured out almost instantly. At this moment, Suliang used all he had learned since his cultivation on the king of heavenly evil. For a moment, he actually had some insights, and after understanding, his realm of swordsmanship seemed to have a tendency to break through. Sure enough, an evenly matched opponent is the best way to become familiar with your own strength and methods. Suliang expressed satisfaction with this battle. As the battle continued, the heavenly evil king gradually discovered that something was wrong. From being evenly matched at the beginning to now, the evil king has gradually fallen into a disadvantage. Suliang's sword moves seemed to be inexhaustible, some were powerful and domineering, some were light and elegant, some were mysterious and hard to find, and some of them had sword intent that even the evil king was unwilling to face. With the support of Minghai Giwen, Taoist nature, etc., Suliang seemed to never get tired, and became more and more courageous as he fought. Seeing it, the evil king is about to be defeated. I am one of the 9 kings of the abyss. How could I lose to an unknown boy like you who comes from nowhere? The heavenly evil king roared angrily and forced Suliang back with a palm, and then he was about to use his most terrifying move. In an instant, the aura of the abyss filled the air, almost blocking out the sky and the sun, and within it, there were faintly terrifying fluctuations brewing. If he was allowed to use it, even Suliang would be a little embarrassed if he forcibly took this move. However, just when the heavenly evil king finished brewing and was about to use it, a ray of sword energy seemed to span space, and it arrived in an instant, directly penetrating the chest of the king of heavenly evil. Puff! Another mouthful of blood spurted out. The heavenly evil king fell directly from the air and fell to the ground. He struggled to get up. Obviously, he had been defeated by Suliang. How is this possible? The evil king muttered to himself, unable to accept this ridiculous fact. The majestic king of the abyss was defeated at the hands of an unknown boy. How could he accept this? How could he let him go? Get out! Suliang slowly sheathed his sword. If you want the emperor's certificate, you are not qualified yet. At this moment, Suliang just felt a little unfinished. Even before he had a breakthrough in his swordsmanship, the heavenly evil king actually lost. Isn't this too overwhelming? What's more, Suliang hasn't used all his strength yet. At least, Suliang has not used the holy relic Thunder King yet. With a sword at the level of a holy object in hand, even Suliang's strength will improve. By then, it will be easier for Suliang to defeat the evil king. Certainly. His identity will be exposed immediately. After all, the holy artifact Reizo has the property of killing evil, and it is absolutely impossible for abyssal creatures to possess it. Essential issues cannot be reconciled. Seeing the evil king leaving in pain, he was full of unwillingness. Yuji moved her jade feet and suddenly appeared in front of Suliang. Immediately afterwards, he threw himself into Suliang's arms. You did a great job, that bastard. People have disliked him for a long time. Lotus Arms hugged Suliang tightly, with a satisfied smile on Yuji's pretty face. I'm just trying to protect myself. Suliang spoke very frankly, as if he wanted to clear up the relationship quickly. Who knows if Yuji will use this excuse to do something to him. Suliang is quite familiar with Yuji, and he knows very well what Yuji can do. Really? Next moment, he heard Yuji smile and say, but you also vented your anger on others. You defeated one of the 9 kings of the abyss and helped him vent his anger. Really, don't I have to reward you this time? No need. Suliang refused without even thinking. We can save the reward for later. Let's delay it first and then talk about other things. As for what to do next? Let's talk about it then. I really can't control that much now. How can I leave it until later? Yuji said seriously and confidently, what you have to do now must be done now. Immediately. Suliang actually felt as if he was suppressed in place, unable to even blink. Immediately. His vision blurred for a while, and when he woke up again, Suliang suddenly found that he had returned to the previous room. It's not convenient for people to reward you outside. Yuji pointed at Suliang's chest. Moment. Unable to resist, Suliang lay down like this. Leaning over, Yuji put her arms beside Suliang. Her smile was meaningful, making Suliang feel a little scared. Be good, I will reward you well. I suggest we don't waste any more time. Suliang refused seriously. I can refuse rewards or something, right? Rejection invalid. Yuji sat up and stepped on Suliang's body with her small and delicate feet, either lightly or heavily. It's white and smooth, moist and soft, with a little warm feeling. It's really unbearable. It's too much. Suliang couldn't help but protest. We are friends now, right? Is this how you treat your friends? Friends. Yuji's jade feet rested on Suliang's chest. Immediately. But he tapped his toes and slowly stroked all the way down. But, I don't want to be friends with you. Friends or something like that can't satisfy people at all. It's okay to take the relationship a step further, or even take a few steps further. People won't mind at all. As for the deeper meaning in Yuji's words, Suliang immediately noticed it. Sure enough, you are plotting against me. But, you know, Suliang can't resist at all. You're not Yuji's opponent at all, okay. Although Suliang is now able to defeat the King of the Abyss. But he had no choice but to deal with Yuji, whose strength was the highest among the Abyss Kings. Unless, the cultivation level is further improved. But just before, he had just broken through and been promoted. Even if there were any adventures, it would be difficult for him to break through again in a short period of time. Even if it is forcibly improved, it will cause an unstable foundation and will be of little benefit to the future. If you can't beat it, what else can you do? It is completely impossible to give in or anything. Just lie down and feel sorry for your wives. We can only maintain the minimum resistance. Whether it can be achieved is another matter. And at this moment, Suliang couldn't care about so much anymore. Following Yuji's actions, Suliang's clothes were split into two halves. Subconsciously, Suliang grabbed his clothes and stared at Yuji. What on earth do you want to do? This time, it was really a bit too much. Suliang had a hunch that if he didn't separate and resist, the consequences would be serious. Don't worry, it's just some rewards. Yuji leaned down and got close to Suliang's face. Jade fingers pinched Suliang's chin, and before Suliang agreed, her cherry lips moved closer. This moment, Suliang was completely confused. Did you make a mistake? This is the first time. This is really too bold. Even my master has never treated me like this. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. My villain wants to clear his name, but he awakens Cao Thief Simulator. Author, Fangzone Womeng. Chapter 579. After a long time, their lips parted. Yuji had a charming smile on her lips, her eyes were as charming as silk, and her pretty face was a little blushing. Be good, here is my reward. The words fell. Straighten up. Yuji took out a pair of black silk stockings. This is indeed a good thing. Slowly opening the black silk stockings, the lace and suspender style immediately made Suliang feel something was wrong. Could it be that Yuji is really? Next moment. Facing Suliang, Yuji's plump and slender legs were raised, and her jade feet were inserted into the black stockings. Slowly lift the black silk stockings. The beautiful legs are plump, and between the movements, the indescribable depth is looming, but there is nothing. Puff. Suliang almost couldn't help but spit out. Although Yuji's actions didn't touch him at all, this silent teasing was obviously even more unbearable. And how can you, the majestic queen of the abyss, have nothing? As if sensing Suliang's gaze, Yuji pretended to be shy and looked away. Oh, you are really not good. You say no, but your eyes are not honest at all. I think I can explain it. Suliang coughed twice. After all, he was wrong about this matter, and he really didn't have much confidence when it came to speaking. No thanks. Yuji chuckled lightly and held Suliang's hand directly. If you want to see it, just say so. I'm very willing to do so. And after approaching Suliang again and kissing her face gently, Yuji said softly, only in front of you will people do this. Don't get me wrong. Hiss. Suliang immediately took a breath of air. Yuji is really too good at it. Even if she doesn't mean to show her affection at all when she says this, there is another kind of confession between the lines. How should I answer this? It is absolutely impossible to agree, but if you refuse, it will be embarrassing for Yuji if you don't say it. If she gets angry and attacks him, Suliang really has no confidence that he can stop it. Then, in response, Suliang had no choice but to remain silent. However, Suliang fell silent, but Yuji didn't intend to let him go like this. It doesn't matter if you don't get a response from him, as long as you let him know what he is thinking, it is enough. As for the rest, there is still a long time, and I am not in a hurry for this moment. Back away slowly. All the way to the other side of Suliang. Lying on his back, his jade hands were placed behind his back to support his body. Yuji raised her beautiful legs and tapped her feet. Directly and completely suppressed Suliang in place. I heard that you like this very much. He tilted his head and blinked. At this moment, Yuji looked quite cute. But Suliang obviously would not agree with this statement. Cuteness and whatnot are completely different from what Yuji is doing now. As Yuji continues to accelerate, super acceleration. Suliang slowly gave up thinking. Benjeo, sister, master, I'm sorry for you. After a long time. Put on a new set of clothes. Suliang fell into silence as he looked at Yuji, who bent down and put on her shoes. Don't you want to change it? Taking out a pair of silk stockings and placing them in front of Yuji, Suliang said, I actually still have them with me. As a member of the Tiandao sect, the best business of my sect is the production and sale of stockings. Suliang will naturally carry some with him. No thanks. Yuji smiled and shook her head, her pretty face suddenly turned red. I like it very much too. Said. Yuji even stepped on it gently. See this? Suliang sighed helplessly and said nothing more. All I can say is that she is indeed the queen of the abyss, who is almost exactly the same as the succubus in her memory. This is simply the succubus queen. Forget it, let her do whatever she likes, she can't control it. Now, Suliang, who had fallen into the state of a sage, was in a calm and indifferent mood, without being obsessed with anything, and looked down upon everything. Yuji or whatever, it doesn't matter. Sitting next to Yuji, he opened the door first and walked out with Yuji. After walking out of the city, Suliang asked curiously, where should we go next? We have obtained the Emperor's certificate. Next, of course, we need to show our identity. Yuji said matter-of-factly, it just so happens that something is going to happen in the abyss recently, which can be used as a stage for us. What's the matter? Suliang asked curiously. He basically knew nothing about what happened in the abyss. The Abyss Council restarts. Yuji's rare expression was a bit solemn. Chapter 786, Obstacles on the Way Forward. Walking on the road to the Abyss Council. Suliang asked curiously, what exactly is the Abyss Council? Just think of it as a meeting formed by the 9 kings of the abyss. Yuji explained concisely, the 9 kings of the abyss each have their own domain. Although each king has different strengths, different areas under his jurisdiction, and even the strength of his subordinates, in general, the gap is not that big. Outrageous. But just because this gap exists, there will naturally be ambitious people who want to get more, resulting in continuous wars in the abyss and chaos. Listening to Yuji's words, Suliang nodded slowly, with a clear understanding. Indeed, even if it is just a battle between two kings, all the creatures in the abyss of the two realms will be involved, so it is naturally no small matter. And if the weaker party is defeated, then when the time comes, one king will dominate both domains, and with the increase in strength and power, a war may sweep across the abyss. In order to avoid this situation from happening, the participation of several other kings seems to be a matter of course. Such a major event that can easily sweep across the entire abyss naturally requires a way to balance it. Volume 1 # Chapter 516, Evidence of the Emperor who became Tang Monk Mead. So, the Abyss Council came into being. Yuji smiled and explained, on the Abyss Council, the 9 kings of the Abyss gather together to discuss and solve some troubles in the Abyss in a relatively peaceful way. Just like what Tianzai King said before when he came to Yuji. With the power of the Heavenly Evil King alone, it is naturally impossible to defeat Yuji, take the border of the Abyss into his own hands, and pass through it at will. But as long as the other members of the Abyss Council unanimously agree, even Yuji will find it difficult to resist the alliance of the other 8 kings. As for whether the other 8 kings will agree, it is almost a consensus of the Abyss to break into the present world. How could they not take action once they have the opportunity? The reason why he has been holding back and not taking action is because of Yuji's existence. Therefore, no king would refuse such a proposal. So, what exactly are we going to do when we go to the Abyss Council? After thinking for a moment, Suliang asked curiously. Well, you'll know when the time comes. Yuji smiled mysteriously, but refused to tell Suliang. See this. Suliang didn't ask any more questions. He can be sure that Yuji will never harm him. If this is the case, then there is no problem. Okay, let's speed up. The Abyss Council is about to start, so don't miss it. After calculating the time, Yuji took Suliang's hand and started to speed up. But at this moment, in front of the two people, several figures suddenly appeared. At the same time, a long sword with extremely strong evil aura fell from the sky and landed in front of Suliang and Yuji, blocking their way. Those figures were all abyssal creatures. At this moment, facing Suliang, whose aura was the same as that of the abyssal creatures, he released extremely strong killing intent. The visitor is not good. With just a rough induction, Suliang could discover that the cultivation levels of these figures were almost the same as his. Stop it, kid. The leader pointed the blade at Suliang and said in a deep voice, you will never be allowed to pass the road ahead. My villain wants to clear his name, but he awakens Cao Thief Simulator. Author, Fangzone Wo Meng. Chapter 580. Hearing this, Suliang frowned, why did you stop me? But having said that, Suliang already had the answer. I'm afraid, it's because of the Emperor's certificate, right? Suliang naturally understands the importance of the Emperor's certificate. This can be seen from the fact that the Evil King, one of the 9 kings of the Abyss, can't wait to come to know. King Tianzai is no match for Yuji. Once Yuji is angered, even the heavenly Evil King is at risk of falling. But when it comes to the Emperor's certificate, even if he bears the risk of falling, Tianzai King will not retreat at all. Not to mention tit for tat, it is definitely not polite. If it weren't for the fact that the Emperor's evidence was too important, how could the Evil King be like this? Really? Just as Suliang expected, the man said coldly, stop talking nonsense, hand over the Emperor's certificate and settle the matter yourself. We can also save you from suffering. If not, in order to fulfill the king's order, even if it's troublesome, we have to take action. These words sounded as if Suliang was convinced. Indeed, several powerful people with life springs, facing Suliang and one life spring, no matter how you look at it, Suliang will definitely lose. Oh, you are someone who wants to kill Gu when you open your mouth. Doesn't this mean you don't take Gu at all? Yuji suddenly smiled coldly. Crossing her arms, the peak of her support became more and more proud. Yuji's pretty face was cold and majestic. At this moment, she completely restored the posture that the Queen of the Abyss should have. No matter who the king is behind you, this matter, good, do I need to ask him for an explanation. We will naturally apologize for our disrespect to the Queen later. The man bowed respectfully to the Queen of the Abyss. No matter who was behind them or how powerful they were, they still had to treat the King of the Abyss with the due respect. It's better to die to apologize. Yuji waved her jade hand, showing no mercy. I obey the Queen's orders. Several abyssal creatures did not object or resist at all, and directly agreed. Seem. They had already thought of the scene before it appeared. But then. The leader then said, but my king has something he wants me to bring to the Queen, and I ask the Queen to listen to it. Tell me, you don't have to guess, you all know what those idiots are going to say. Yuji nodded, her rudeness and dissatisfaction undisguised in her words. Thank you, Queen, for this gift. The leader breathed a sigh of relief and said in a deep voice, as my king said, those who hold the Emperor's certificate can be the Emperor's successor. But this successor to the Emperor must not reach the Abyss Council. This is the consensus of the other 8 kings. Oh, are you planning to unite with others to persecute Gu? Yuji raised her brows and her eyes became dangerous. What if I don't agree? Besides, just a few of you are not enough to take away the Emperor's certificate in front of me, right? Of course we can't, but there are other difficulties and dangers waiting for the Queen ahead. The Abyss creature was not afraid and said calmly, if the Queen insists on doing this, the other 8 kings will protest against the Queen together. Please think deeply about it. Snort. With a slight snort, Yuji glanced at these people dissatisfied, then turned to look at Sul Yang. There is no other way. It seems that someone is unwilling to let you reach the Abyss Council properly. Other kings of the Abyss, right? Sul Yang smiled, but didn't care at all. It's an expected thing. Hold the Emperor's certificate and embark on the road to becoming an Emperor. If you succeed, you can command the entire Abyss. This position is coveted by all the kings of the Abyss. How could it be allowed to be taken by others? You can imagine. On the road ahead, there are still many difficulties and obstacles waiting for Sul Yang. But so what? Just let them come. Sul Yang smiled calmly, it's not that easy to stop me. If you just retreat, this incident can be forgotten. Yuji crossed her arms and said to these abyss creatures. I'm sorry to obey. The leader said in a deep voice, and the aura from the abyss continued to surge. It was obvious that he was ready to fight. In that case, don't blame us for not being merciful. Yuji smiled faintly, turned to Sul Yang and said, you have no problem dealing with these people, right? Don't worry, it's just a life spring, I don't care about it. Sul Yang also smiled faintly, obviously very confident in himself. The heavenly evil king, one of the 9 kings of the Abyss, has been defeated by Sul Yang. There are just a few life springs. Sul Yang has always been invincible at the same level, so naturally he will not be afraid of these. With Sul Yang's current strength, even in the Abyss, he is definitely a top existence. Volume 1 Chapter 517 Breaking into the Parliament alone, all the kings gathered together. Even the 9 kings of the Abyss could at best prevent Sul Yang from winning, but it would still be too delusional to defeat Sul Yang. Certainly. Among them, Yuji is naturally not included. Oh, the Queen didn't take action. The leader raised his brows, and his face became a little more joyful. The Queen will definitely inform my king of this sincerity when we return. In their opinion, Sul Yang, who was only in the life spring realm, could not be their opponent. Their biggest enemy during this trip should be Yuji. But now, since Yuji didn't take action, Wouldn't it mean that she had tacitly agreed to let them bring back the Emperor's certificate? It seems that even the famous Queen of the Abyss will find it difficult to face the pressure of the other 8 kings. However, immediately afterwards, they heard Yuji chuckle. You may have misunderstood something. The reason why I don't take action is because Suliang alone is enough to deal with you. Is the majestic Queen of the Abyss joking at this moment? Our digital life fountain is the king's peak strength, yet we can't win against a mere life fountain? How can this be? But the next moment, in front of a few people, they only felt a burst of sword light passing by. Next, the vast and majestic sword energy was fleeting, and it penetrated several people in just an instant. Puff! Several people spit out a mouthful of blood and flew out. When they got up again, only 3 or 2 of the powerful men who had transcended the realm were still able to get up. As for the rest, they all died under Suliang's sword. How is it possible? All the surviving abyss creatures were shocked. They are all life spring experts, and they have been famous for a long time. After many years of practice, even if they have not broken through, they still have profound knowledge. The ordinary life spring is no match for them. But facing a young man, they couldn't even block a move. Certainly. Perhaps this was due to Suliang's sudden action. But even so, it would be unbelievable to kill many of them with one sword. This is a situation that only occurs due to the absolute gap in strength. And just when these abyssal creatures were stunned and shocked, Suliang was already ready and planned to use his second sword. The enemy of life and death, and the other party has a large number of people, so there are some battle etiquette and so on, which does not exist here at Suliang. See this. The few surviving abyss creatures immediately struggled to get up, clenching the blades in their hands, and with their breath boiling, they were about to fight back. But not before they take action. That dazzling sword light erupted again. Between the vertical and horizontal sword energy, the sword came out without any regrets, and its indomitable sword intent shot straight into the sky, tearing apart the heavy clouds. Just a moment. Suliang passed by, and the 3 or 2 remaining abyss creatures actually fell behind Suliang. It's over. Suliang slowly sheathed his sword and said to Yuji with a smile, "Shall we go?" "Good." Yuji nodded, walked forward, and took Suliang's hand. "Let's go faster. With these people blocking us, we have wasted a lot of time. We don't know how many people are blocking us in front of us. In other words, don't you have enough time?" "It's okay, there's still enough time." "Okay, I understand, there must be not enough time. In that case, why don't we set off earlier? Those rewards and rest are simply unnecessary, right?" "Hey." After crossing the abyss, Suliang and others were closer to the Abyss Council. "It seems that whoever sent those people hasn't noticed us yet." Yuji breathed a sigh of relief. Although it won't take much time to deal with those people, it is still very troublesome.